Welcome to Let's Play Rule the Waves 3 as Germany, starting in 1935. It is 1947, it's June, and I think, should do a little 6-month review of our war against Great Britain and its Johnny-come-lately friends, France, because it's been a successful but difficult time. Difficult partly because of the weather, and successful but not as much as I'd hoped, but perhaps I'm being too hard on myself. So let's have a little look at the battles that we've fought over the last 6 months. So first of all, we had a battle in the way down in the western approaches at the mouth of the English Channel, and we won. We scored more than 100,000 points more than the British. We sank a battleship as well as assorted bits and 139 aircraft, and we lost a heavy cruiser and a light cruiser. It gave us a minor victory and a prestige point for 6,500 victory points. So, reasonable place to start off. And then we had a very stormy battle off the Shetland Isles. Much smaller scale victory, only 18,500 points in the black. But we still sank one of the British battle cruisers and a light cruiser, and we only lost a destroyer in comparison. Again, a minor victory and a single prestige, and only 1,100 points added to our victory point tally. Third came in the same sea area, a very stormy carrier battle, very on-off with the weather, in which we managed to score just under 100,000 battle points more than the British, and sink a carrier, in which they lost 105 aeroplanes to our own 47. Again, a minor victory, again a prestige. This time, just under 5,500 victory points added to the victory point tally. So that's February, the first month of the war, January, there's never a battle. So this is February, March, April. In May, we defended Norway against an invasion attempt and scored just over 100,000 battle points more than they did. We only, so close, were able to sink a light carrier, but also 3 cruisers, some destroyers, 10 transports, crucially, and 150 of their aircraft. And we only lost a light cruiser and a couple of destroyers and 81 in comparison, which gave us a major victory with 2 prestiges and 6,000 victory points. Now, why that's a major victory, where this one over here, the February battle, is a minor victory, even though the February battle gained slightly more victory points, I'm not clear on. Possibly an invasion attempt has an extra thing going on with it. And then finally in June, we had that scary battle off the coast of Iceland against the French this time. All the other 4 battles were against the Royal Navy, in which again we sank a carrier and 97 aeroplanes against 38 of our own. Another minor victory, another prestige, another 5,250 victory points added to our total. So good, solid achievements in 4 of the battles, and an important strategic victory in the defense of Norway. Had we not been able to hold off the invasion of Norway, that would have, made that a bit painful in terms of, at the very least, a protracted war to try and expel the Allies out of Norway. It's been done before. Or losing Norway, and then probably the Allies suing for peace with us losing Norway. Someone mentioned in the comments, by the way, that they're half expecting a white peace to come along. I hadn't really thought about that, but now that they mentioned it, yeah, that definitely is a possibility. I've had a look at our invasion opportunities, and there really aren't any. The thing that they might be holding out for is the blockade. Before the French joined, I was getting really close to being able to lift the British blockade with defeat after defeat after defeat after defeat, but with the French joining in and in now taking the primary role over from the British, that's being put back quite a bit. We'll have a look at that in a moment. The sum total of all of this, well, more than 430,000 battle points in our favour. We've sunk 2 carriers, 2 fast battleships, battlecruisers, and a light carrier to boot, and and 4 cruisers. We've destroyed 500 aeroplanes for the loss of a heavy cruiser, 2 light cruisers, some small ships, and only 230 aircraft, giving us 24,000 and a bit victory points. So, in total, that seems like a pretty successful prosecution of the war, even though none of these 5 battles have turned out to be a knockout blow in which I sink 2 or 3 or 4 of their ships, as we all know can sometimes happen in rule the waves. If we have a quick look at how the fleets are deployed, you'll see that here we are at the moment with 2 battlecruisers and the rest of the fleet. The other 2 battlecruisers are being repaired. They'll be back next month. So 5 carriers, 5 heavy cruisers, 6 light cruisers, giving us 148 blockade points. Now, that's only half the blockade points of the British and the French. But what's interesting is, well, first of all, that should increase to sort of nearly 200 or something when the 2 battlecruisers return next month. They have 8 battleships and battlecruisers and 5 carriers, 9 light carriers. Not an impressive number of cruisers, it has to be said. But that's partly because they've denuded pretty much everywhere else. They've only got a couple of light cruisers in North America and the Caribbean, 3 heavy and 3 light in West Africa for AI reasons. Just the single heavy cruiser in the Mediterranean this time, matching our 2 light cruisers reasonably well. And you may be wondering, but hang on, isn't Britain at war with Japan at the moment? Yes, you're absolutely right. And over in Southeast Asia, there are 2 corvettes. I mean, I know that I'm the sentient one here, but honestly, AI, you're concentrating absolutely everything in Northern Europe to face me down. I mean, in fairness, there is a 3rd corvette in the South Pacific. I don't want to, over-exaggerate this, but, geez Louise, that is a lot facing us without really doing anything significant against the Japanese. And I didn't even see the Japanese scoring many victory points themselves. Anyhow, mustn't grumble. Let's have a look at where we're at right now. So we're down 2 of our 4 battlecruisers. So, after the Battle of Iceland being a bit scary with them trying to catch me with all of theirs, I'm a bit, well, perhaps I should wait until those 2 battlecruisers rejoin the fleet. But the other question is, have we made up our losses? Now, in the new beta that we have, it's supposed to tell us about production. If we have a little look at the aircraft types we currently have, you see that production, which is the number of aircraft delivered last month, all seems to be 0. So I'm not quite sure why that is so, but anyhow. So what shape are our carrier fighter groups and strike aircraft in? So if we have a look at the Graf Zeppelin, we can see they're fine. They're all completely up to strength. And if we look at the Peter Strasser, the dive bombers and torpedo bombers are a little bit down, but not a huge amount. We looked at the Richthofen, they're absolutely fine. But the August von Passeval, they've had a bit of a knocking about. Again, the fighter strength, absolutely fine, but the dive bomber and torpedo bomber squadrons, particularly the dive bomber, have taken a bit of a knocking. And Otto Lichtenthal is similar-ish. Again, not massively down, but certainly not really, full strength. So I'm sort of minded to backpedal this month and just take it easy and maybe have a little cruiser engagement, but not do anything. The biggest concern is unrest, which had been 7 and went down to 6, has gone back up to 7 because of this darn blockade, which I'm struggling to do anything about. Although, my hope is that my counter-blockade with the U-boats is taking its toll too. And we're going to have a little look at that at the end of this month when we get the next set of figures for how the submarine warfare is going. Interesting to note that we've had unrestricted warfare for nearly 6 months and not a single liner sunk. So that's brilliant. I mean, I hope I haven't jinxed things by mentioning that. I may deploy some bad language if I have. Right, so let's push on for the next turn and see what's what. So, having mentioned the cruisers in the Mediterranean, boom, here we get a little cruiser battle. There's enemy forces, a battle cruiser. Well, unless they've sneakily redeployed their fleet when I press the turn button, that shouldn't be a thing. So cross fingers. And given it's this close to Greece, mainland and Crete, we do have a fair force, including jet fighters on the land-based air that could provide us with some cap. And I don't believe they have any of their own, any carriers of their own. And the French decline. Well, thank you very much. And let's try another one then and see how they feel about that. And they don't feel confident about that. Right. So here's a cruiser battle again in the junction between the Bay of Biscay and the western approaches and the Atlantic. And I'm minded to say no. They say it's evenly matched. 2 BCs of ours against 2 BCs of the enemy. Possibly British. Discuss. But yeah, with light carriers and my CV. I mean, it's a tempting ratio if this estimated enemy forces were actually true. But let's go in and have a look at the battle generation score and see if... I mean, I'm certainly predisposed to say no. So, estimated enemy forces, 2 battle cruisers, 3 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, a carrier and 4 light carriers, and 51 destroyers. Expected enemy forces, some battle cruisers and supporting forces, possibly some carrier. Well, that's nice and vague. And it's giving forces for France. So Iceland 20, Western France 240. So actually that would be the French Navy. I'm going to decline this for 208 simply because, you know, it's just too far away from mine. Oh, God, it's tempting me. I do love a convoy attack. Oh well, let's see what this one will bring. Okay. Expected enemy forces, a battle cruiser, 2 carriers, 3 light cruisers, 1 destroyer. What do we have? So we have our 2 battle cruisers, our heavy cruisers, our light cruisers. Well, I definitely don't like that. I'm not going anywhere near a bunch that may have carriers without carrier protection myself. God's teeth, it really wants... Well, this is interesting because this is clearly the French Maritime Nationale having overtaken from the British Royal Navy the lead in fighting me in this area. Again, I'm going to go no. Demonstrations occur in some cities in Germany demanding peace and bread. Well, who doesn't want peace and bread? Sounds very tasty to me. So here we go with the submarines. So 4 more submarines. I think we're getting close to the end of the coastals that we started building way back, but I may be wrong. France honours alliance and joins Great Britain in war against Japan. Oh, okay. Well done, France. Take note, Italy. This is, you know, what real friends do. So, yeah, perhaps the French will send a couple of corvettes to the Far East as well. I'll be definitely looking at that. And okay on that. Yeah, new medium bomber. We are developing a last fighter, and then I need probably a torpedo bomber, but we'll double check. So, submarine sunk in the Med, and coastal in Northern Europe, and another, and another, and another. Goods are becoming scarce in France due to sinkings of merchant ships. Well, that's good news. Not just us. Okay, I mean, we're ahead of them in the food shortages and peace element, but that is good news. And we've sunk 1 and 2 of theirs. So let's have a little look. Yeah, another 5 after last month's 5 submarines lost. 220 VPs for blockade. And only 19 merchant ships sunk. That's that's not a thrilling number. Right, if we stop and just have a quick look at this, and just go here, and to the next slide. So this is how our U-boats are deployed. So 10 submarines in the American East Coast, 9 in the Caribbean, 6 in West Africa, and 9 in the Mediterranean, now 8. We lost 4 of our coastals here, but we also built 4, so that's still at 72. So we're net 1 down. So if we lose 5 submarines, we lose 1 because we're building 4 every year. So this deployment pattern, where you put your coastals in your home area and you deploy your submarines to the far reaches, I think is really successful. And now that the length of time it takes to build an SS compared to a medium submarine, compared to a long-range submarine, or compared to a mine-laying submarine, makes the mine-laying and long-range submarines much more attractive as well. And they could be deployed further out. Certainly the long-range ones could be deployed further out in ways that, again, are difficult to defend against because the amount of ASW in these areas is small, because they're concentrating them particularly in Northeast Europe. So that part of it is all going well. If we have a look at the submarine stats so far, using this dispersed deployment and using unrestricted warfare, so there was that grievous loss of U-boats at the very beginning where we lost 13, and then it's kept down to 1s and 3s and 1s, just perking up here with these 2 5s. Hopefully that is something that is just seasonal because of, for example, the longer day. It has meant that this ratio, the number of submarines we've lost against the number of transports that they've lost, has now gone down to 5.8. It had been last month 6.3 merchants lost per U-boat lost. So yeah, I hope very much this is not a thing. And I'm not sure why this has suddenly declined so much from the, ignore this, this was on standard balanced warfare. These I think were restricted. So why it's declined quite so much, I'm not sure. Still no liners lost, touching wood. So here you can see the lost ratios themselves. So yeah, I guess 2 bad British months against 2 bad German months. And then if we look here, you can see this is the turn 1 deployment of the fleet when we first scattered them. And this is where we are on turn 6, where we've actually increased in Northern Europe, but that's because we keep on pumping out the coastal submarines. So we've had something like 28 new builds, and actually that's wrong, that should be 28 losses. And yeah, so it's all evening up. Actually, should be live editing, 32 new builds. So we're up 4 because we've had this consistent supply of new submarines. Okay, so the French are suffering. Shame there's no message around the British, but there have been. So yeah, hopefully we are exhausting ourselves through all of this stuff. Let's go back to here and carry on with the rest of the news that's fit. Demonstrations occur in Germany, British building, and the French building. More corvettes. Web auto building for submarine. War emergency measures has shortened the construction time of one of our submarines. Hooray. More air bases around the world. Yep. Russians are up to something. Japan not doing a hell of a lot, it has to be said. Some promotions, which is all very nice. Tensions between USSR and Italy increase. Tension between Britain and the Soviet Union decrease because they both have tense relations with Germany. Well, I don't honestly sound like the sound of that. Okay, tensions between China and the Soviet Union decrease because they have similar values. And according to war reports, a British submarine has been sunk by Japanese forces. Well, it's nice to see the Japanese doing something. Hooray. Okay. So actually, I think I'm going to pause this one here. Just pump it out as a quick little 20-minute review of where we are after 6 months. And then I'll start to record the battle that no doubt is going to come up immediately unless the French start inviting me down into the Bay of Biscay all over again. So thanks for watching, and I will see you soon next time. Bye for now.